correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't do the usual roll call and stuff, do we?
Why don't we do a roll call just since we're using Zoom, just so that everyone knows who's here? And maybe just have Henry and company identify themselves.
By all means. So my name's Stephen Antonio. I am the chair today, so I am here. Anka, do you want to start? We'll just go across the board. If you could just say your name. And
Yes, I'm Anka Dragulski.
I'm Jackie Battis.
Am I next? Polly Rice on the
you are
board.
now.
Kate Beal.
Okay, and who's I think everyone else is representing the applicants. Is that correct? No, Robert, you're on our board, right?
Well, I'm representative from the EDC.
Okay. Sorry, I got confused on who's on what nowadays.
No problem.
But go ahead.
So Henry, why don't you introduce the team and then we can get started.
Sure, great. My name is Henry Withers. I'm with the firm of CR3 Studio at Lorero Engineering. And with me today is also Cindy Reynolds, who is also a landscape architect and works with us, and Tristan Wallace, who is our civil engineer and has been integral in the project as well. And so we would love to talk to you about some of our thoughts on this project this afternoon and make sure that we're running down a road that seems correct.
And I'm Dave Goslin. I'm a principal architect with Krosky Architects. We're the architects for the project.
You were hidden.
That's all right, Henry.
I'm sorry about that.
You guys repeat the name of the firms. I didn't catch them all.
So three of us, Cindy, myself, and Tristan, are from Lorero Engineering, part of CR3 Studios for Cindy, but it's all part of Lorero Engineering.
CR3?
CR3, yes.
I'll type it into the chat so that you have it.
Krosky Architects.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm with Krosky Architects out of Hartford.
Krosky?
Yep. CROSSKEY.
Okay, thank you.
And Dave and I just, and Cindy and Tristan, we all worked recently on the Ensign House for Mark Scully. So we've, and I grew up in Simsbury, know the town well. So.
Okay, thank you.
Up to you, Mike. I don't know whether you do something more formal or whether you'd like us to get into the project.
Why don't you guys get into the project? Cynthia, if you want to share your screen and we can go over the drawings you have.
Yep, that sounds
I'm
good.
going to give you sort of an executive summary as Cindy pulls up various pictures, and then we'll try to drill down into a little bit more detail, and certainly anywhere along the way you feel that you have a question, feel free to stop me and ask. I treat this as very informal. This is our first time before you. And same thing I've told Dave and Kristen and Cindy is, as I go along, if there's something that they would like to add to that, I'd love them to jump in. We are looking at a project for 894 Hot Meadow Street, and it's actually owned by an LLC called 894 Hot Meadow Street. John Ritson could not be here tonight. He's tied up because of the holidays, but he has asked me to call him and let him know how the meeting went afterwards. The property is the one that you see with Cindy's arrow on, and now it's highlighted. It's probably best known to you all as the site where Jay Foster's was, and before that it was Tommy Herlihy's insurance building. John Ritson bought it from him, and the LLC bought it from him after it went on the market. To the north is the Simsbury Town Shops, and to the south is the funeral home, the Vincent Funeral Home. Simsbury Town Hall is right across the way. No, that's the fire station. Just to the north there is Simsbury Town Hall.
It's where I know the town.
Yeah, sorry. And in addition, Schultz Park is there, right across the street is Schultz Park. And then to the east, is the Simsbury Performing Arts Center, which actually I was involved in designing with Tommy Vincent, and the soccer fields. And so you have the bike paths and the walking trails and all that connecting in as well. And again, commercial retail to the north, and the funeral home, you have a number of places, municipal parking to the south as well, that people use to go on to Iron Horse Boulevard and to some of the events that go on. So
Excuse me, Henry.
yes.
Your microphone is fading out a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to see if I can sit up a little bit closer here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Let me know if I do fade out. So that's an overview of the site itself. It is 1.23 acres. It is in two different zones. It's in the Simsbury Center Zone, I think 1 and 4, I believe, Cindy, if you pull that up. And that the front of the site facing Hot Meadow is in one zone, and the back facing Iron Horse Boulevard is in another zone. They all have their building setbacks from Hot Meadow Street. We have an 18-foot building setback, and what appears to be, we took it off the map for the center zone, it's a 50-foot parking setback as well. And we'll want to talk with you a little bit about that as we get a little bit further along the site. See our site right there with a little garage beside the building. The idea would be that both of those two buildings, both the small little one, it's a one-car garage, and then the Jay Foster's building, Tommy Hurley's building, would be taken down and replaced with a building which Dave will get into a little bit further down the line. But essentially, it's a building that has 40 around 40 apartment units and about 5,000 square feet of commercial space. Dave can get into the exact numbers. It's shifted back and forth as the program and as the footprint has changed a little bit. And we've provided for 72 parking spaces on the site, as well as 2 motorcycle spaces. So there's what Cindy's got up on screen right now is an aerial overlaid onto the survey. So you can see the current access to the site is kind of from the lane that services Simsbury Center, Simsbury, what is it?
The center
Simsbury,
shops?
the Centertown shops, the
Simsbury Town.
Simsbury Town Shops.
Sorry, my mind was blanking on that. You can see the 4 spaces that are kind of pulled off there, and then there's another 4 on the other side with a handicapped parking space, and then people walk along the sidewalk back to the front of the J. Foster's and go in that way. There is a small curb cut that is also associated with the garage. That's really only owned by, or that's really only used by the J. Foster's people typically. All the clients typically go into the curb cut there.
Henry, I'm sorry, you're fading out for me again. Can other people hear?
I'm sorry. Yep. No. I'll.
But you're in and out.
All right. I apologize. Let me see if I can adjust this at all. And so right now, let's see. Go back where I was. And right now there is also a wetlands area to the east, and Cindy's circling it now. That is a mowed lawn. It is a hydrophytic soil, but it doesn't function as a typical wetland. Mike Klein, as the wetlands scientist out there, he's developed some reports. He's seen our plan, and he's comfortable with what we're doing. In fact, I think he's thinking that what we're going to be proposing is going to actually enhance that a little bit. But right now, along the both Iron Horse, there are some trees that were planted along Iron Horse, which we plan to maintain. And same if you go along Hot Meadow, along Hot Meadow, there are also 2 large locusts, which we plan to keep in place as well. We will be taking out some of the trees within the site as part of the overall development, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. Is my sound okay now, Steve?
It is what it is. It's still fading in and out.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm wondering if there's something running interference with it or
That
something.
works when you do that.
What?
It's picked up again.
Steve,
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Maybe it was,
Jackie.
maybe
if
it was
you
running
mute
interference.
everybody else, it would be a lot easier to hear Henry. There's feedback.
Okay, let's mute.
Cindy, next slide, maybe. Cindy? Yeah, thank you. This is the site plan. And what you see on here again is a building that Dave is working on that he can explain and will show some elevations of as well. That's
Okay,
it.
I'm sorry. Could you back up? What is it that you want to build?
So it is it's a combination of about 40 apartments and about 5,000 square feet of retail, and that would be for little shops along Hot Meadow Street, such as J. Foster's.
And how many stories?
So it's 3 stories above, and then it has a garage underneath it, and you're looking at the garage plan underneath that. The parking for it would be underneath the building, so then most of it would be unseen from Hot Meadow and from Iron Horse. Dave, do you want to add anything?
Thanks, Henry. Yeah, what we're proposing to build here is what's called a podium building, in which it's a wood frame structure over a concrete floor deck and a parking garage. So the lower level, we're taking advantage of the topography because the portion of the building that fronts Hot Meadow is a 3-story building, but the way the topography slopes down to Iron Horse Boulevard, we gain a whole story. So it makes it very convenient to tuck the parking in underneath the building so we can kind of get our parking counts, but not have to see the parking from the street. There will be some on-street parking, which Henry will talk about in a moment. This is a snapshot, a sketch that we have of the south elevation. So Hot Meadow would be to your left and Iron Horse would be to the right. So this, you can see the slope and the topography here. So the parking is getting tucked underneath the building. So it's really a 3-story building, but the 3rd story is built underneath the gable of the roof. So we're trying to keep the scale to a 2-story looking scale to match the rest of the scale of Hot Meadow.
And again, the commercial is fronting Hot Meadow Street, so there'd be a couple little retail and or commercial spaces that would front out on Hot Meadow Street. We've actually provided some patio space out there because again, if a venue like J. Foster's were to come into this space, we would see maybe some outdoor dining, some people gathering in there. Cindy, is it worth, let's go back to the site plan slide for a second and we'll show them that. Just kind of hop around a little bit, sorry. So you can see we've continued the sidewalk along Hot Meadow from Vincent's all the way past Simsbury Town Shops. And we're proposing that it be done in pavers to match the basic standard that Simsbury has set with the pavers. One of the differences is that we are proposing 4 spaces that are right off of Hot Meadow. And so we've pulled the parking a little bit back from the main road. We've passed this by the state and we've gotten a response back from them that they're okay with that, with the caveat that they would not move into that space to snowplow it in the wintertime. That would have to be maintained by others. So that would be something that we would need to work out with the town to make sure that you're comfortable that it'll be maintained properly. But essentially, that allows us to have 4 spaces right on Hot Meadow, right across from Schultz Park, similar to perhaps what you see when you get down toward the Maple Tree and the Sims and the Eno Memorial and the Simsbury Cemetery, where there is parking right off of Route 10 that people do use. And I know I use that quite a bit, right in front of Vincent's and all that. We have not only the little eating area that we sort of show there, but also an entrance into the apartments at the northeast corner. And what we're doing is we're showing that surrounded by a little fenced-in enclosure. There would be a fence, a lower fence that might enclose portions of the eating areas, the little patios as well. But we're planning on preserving and keeping the existing large locusts in those areas, so they would provide shade, and they would also provide sort of a separation of that space. But where the apartments come in, we did want it to be a little bit more private, where somebody would feel like they had a place where they could go outside and just sit for a minute when they're waiting for a friend to come, or they could, just know that they could go into that space, but people that weren't necessarily part of the apartment complex could. Again, we're preserving the two large locusts. You see them at the north and south of that, right along the property line. The state did ask that we maintain our fence outside of their property line. We are continuing a line of the lights to match the downtown standard that would go along the sidewalk, and we're relocating one existing one that is currently, right in the middle of the sidewalk that would be moved back. That's the one that Cindy's showing. So we've maintained that same design motif going along the, the sidewalk. We've also provided just to the south there some bike racks. So there are 8 bike racks there. We have a total of 22 bike racks on site. They're inside the garage as well, because what we're assuming is that people that live downtown will want to enjoy the fact that they can bike around to almost any of the businesses, and they're directly connected with Iron Horse Trails and going all the way up to Massachusetts and all the way down to Farmington and Plainville, wherever you want to drive. It's a pretty nice bike route. I go there quite a bit myself. So,
can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
I don't want to throw you off. So is what we're seeing outside is not matching up grade wise to what we're seeing inside, right? Or is it?
That's correct. That's a very good point. So what's happening is if we go back to the section that we showed you before, the architectural section, you'll see that red car is essentially where that would be to the right of where you come in. The main entrance is just under the gable roof of that. Then as you turn left and go toward Hot Meadow Street,
right,
you're basically tucking underneath the building. There is some open circulation through there, but you're tucking under the building. And that's actually, it's a good time to talk about it a little bit, because it's something that we did speak with Mike about, and he wanted us to bring it up to you and to the zoning commission as well. To get to that number of the 72 spaces, Cindy, maybe if you just click on the site plan again for a second. We are underground.
Henry,
yeah.
That's an issue really for the zoning commission, not for this board.
Okay,
the setback.
So we can get into that level of detail for this.
No.
But I am wondering if on one of these other drawings that's like on the grade level, if we could see how the exterior relate. I don't know if you happen to have a drawing with you where we're seeing the stuff that you're showing right now with the outdoor stuff and how it relates to how someone comes off the street and into the shops. That would be my one. I would want to know, understand that better. I see this, but
does the first floor or second floor of the architectural show only the site parking?
I'm sorry, I missed the end of that.
I'm hoping that maybe, Cindy, if you can scroll up to the, go down one. So that shows it to a degree, but that's a little bit out of date. This shows the building footprint, and it shows the 4 spaces out on Hot Meadow. Since this time, there was some parking added along the access drive right along there as well. You'll be able to see in the site plan in a minute, but that's about what you're seeing, Kate, from a building standpoint. There's a building footprint in the dark outline. It has 2 open spaces to the parking below. Then there's a patio on the back facing Ironhurst Boulevard and facing the wetlands.
So where you're coming off the street, all those windows that we saw in that elevation, that one, are there like doors into these different shops, or are you going into like one door and then you're like inside a mall?
Those are, right now, they're designed as all storefront entries. We don't know how many tenants. It could be one big tenant or it could be multiple small tenants. But we want to kind of design some flexibility into that so that they have the option of subdividing. And then the residential entry would be off to the left. Cindy, if you can, yeah, that would be the residential entry right there.
Okay, and then these would all have their own entry underneath this canopy and some seating and doorways to
That's
go
correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Or as Dave said, if it ends up being one larger restaurant or something like that, that wants to, single control of the door access, it might be only one entrance, but they'd still have the ability to come out onto the patio, so there'd be additional doors of some kind.
Right.
How will they service this commercial area?
Okay, so let me get into that. Cindy, could you go back to the site plan? So service is at the back of the building, but the way Kroski has handled it is, I think, very nice. It's essentially got an internal service area that's underneath that patio that's overlooking the Simsbury Performing Arts and the soccer fields. And we allow a truck to essentially come in from Iron Horse, and then we've designed it so that they can pull into a little short service drive, reverse themselves, and then pull back out onto Iron Horse. That section of Iron Horse is two-way. Coming in from, if you zoom back out just a little bit, Cindy. Get to Hot Meadow, thanks. So coming from Hot Meadow, you can see the arrow is only one way in. So we don't have any conflicts with Vincent's. And then we go down, and by the time you hit the stop bar, there is two ways. So somebody coming out of the underground parking could come out to Iron Horse. Somebody coming in from Iron Horse could get to their parking space for their apartment below. And the service truck could pull into that little short entrance there and then back out, to do a K-turn and then pull out with the drive going back out to Iron Horse. And Cindy, if you pull over to Iron Horse for 1 second, just wanted to show you this as well. Again, this may be getting into the weeds a little bit, but we've spoken with the town engineer about providing a pull-off lane off of Iron Horse Garage, because right now the entire area is an island. And so we've got our own entrance out of that island and a little pull-off lane that would accommodate a few cars that would be signed as a way to pull off the side before you pull into your apartment parking. Does that answer your question? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that might have been off.
Can I interject for just a second so we stay on our purview of design and review, if you don't mind? Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make sure we stay focused. Design and review, we're different than zoning. Zoning is going to decide if this fits as far as the footprint and the traffic flow and things of that caliber. We are, of course, concerned with the aesthetics of how it looks with the delivery entrance, things of that. But we've really got two overwhelming tasks here. The first one is, does this site development fit in with that area of town? That's the first thing. And the other thing is it drawing on our heritage as far as its neighbor, like Vincent's Funeral Home? Think about the neighbors and how this is going to reflect on the existing structures. Is it compatible and consistent with what we have? So our question should really, in my estimation, be targeted towards those two topics. One is, is it aesthetically, does it fit with that area of the town center? And also, is it complementary to the existing structures already in place? So I just wanted to point that out so we sort of understand what exactly component of this presentation we're centering on.
Okay, so one of the things that I would say with regard to that, just maybe it's in addition to that, I don't know how you feel about it, but we're trying to address the Simsbury Center Zone regulations, which lean themselves toward this form-based architecture and toward this kind of a development to bring people into downtown. So from an overall compatibility standpoint, I'm hoping that you look at this as a positive, because it does bring people right into the Simsbury Center Zone. And I think it brings it in a nice way residentially. I think, Dave, you can address the architectural a little bit more precisely, but I think the idea is that what we're trying to do is provide something that sort of goes with the Simsbury Town shops and has the feel and scale of Hot Meadow Street. We've met all the setbacks of the center zone, and we're trying to give a beautiful living environment that faces out again onto Route 10, also faces out onto Iron Horse and all the activities that go on there, and is respectful to both of those kind of things. I think the back and the front of the buildings, maybe if you go to the back elevation, if you could for a second.
So is there any lawn area that would be usable for the tenants that live there? I'm not sure if that wetlands area is suitable for that. I just see a lot of, it looks like you've gone to the edge of the entire property with the pavement and the structure. So where would people go out to sit in the grass? I know it sounds very simple, but I don't see that available really at all.
No, it's not. I mean, the wetlands itself is going to be an enhanced wetlands, so that that would be something we'd see as a positive. Michael Klein sees it as a positive. It'd be something to look at from that patio at the backside, and be nice to see all year. But the lawns themselves would be what you're looking at the town green and the all the space that's in the Simsbury.
What town green are you referring to?
Oh, the Simsbury Performing Arts Center, which is just to this whole area.
Okay, I've never heard it called the town green before.
I'm sorry, I meant that it's the Simsbury Performing Arts.
Okay, it seems like you've taken, and this is just my opinion, every square inch possible with pavement and structure without leaving any kind of green, even though I know Schultz Park is across the street, but nothing on site. And, would the state allow you with a crosswalk for access to the park across the street? I know there's one a little bit further at the town hall, but just accessibility to green living. And that's my only concern, is that there really is no green space on the property.
Okay.
I don't know what the rest of the board thinks of that.
I totally agree with you. Again, I understand that's a preliminary design, but just looking at it, I believe for economic reason, again, the same thing, it happens. It's a massive volume and it's overbuilt. It's using the entire piece of land.
Right.
And for all of us Simsbury residents, it will be extremely hard to come to terms with losing that beautiful hilly meadow behind the ice cream parlor. I'm sure many of us went there many times on the 4th of July or for all the Hartford Symphony concerts, sit on the lawn, have ice cream and had a fantastic time, whatever. Anyway, I don't want to get too sentimental, but this is a very, very delicate, it's going to be, I think, a very delicate project from our standpoint as Simsbury residents. It's a prime time location in the Simsbury Center. And as Steve and Polly mentioned so far, I believe that more attention to what's going to be built there, I think it's way too much. And this commercial front, it's getting really close to the street, to Hot Meadow. Maybe if it will be more recessed to allow more open space and patios with umbrellas and whatnot. And also if the entire volume can be somehow broken, it will into smaller, volumes. It's just too massive, way too massive. Yeah. So it's preliminary. I'm sure all of you will pay a lot of attention and more time to design.
I agree, Anka. Thank you.
Go ahead, Patty. Polly.
So I think,
No, I just was agreeing with Anka that she continued on with my thought that it's just a very huge structure for the location and will just kind of overpower that neighborhood, the neighborhood buildings.
so I think what they were trying to do was respond to what seems to be an intent of the Simsbury Center Zone regulations to try to get more massing up against Hot Meadow and where people would, continue the streetscape and would use the space, and it would not be, a distant space. Cindy, if you go to the Simsbury Center town, if you can go to the aerial, I'm sorry, for a second.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Henry. So Anka, I think, has an excellent point about the massing of the building. So I agree that engaging with the sidewalk and the street with some patio seating I like what you guys were doing with that. And I agree with Anka that it's like one large storefront. And I worry honestly about that frontage not getting filled in. We have a lot of empty storefronts along Route 10 as it is. And that not looking like a good aesthetic. But I think if you were able to play with the massing where it like recesses in some areas and comes forward in others, I think engaging the street is something that I agree with you, Henry, is something that the town needs to do better, because a lot of how we relieve the space is by putting parking lots along the road, which isn't almost in some ways not as nice as having a building there that's making that more present and pedestrian. So maybe there's a way to kind of split the difference a little bit, where it's great that you're not putting like a big parking lot in the front like Simsbury Town Shops has next door. But if there was a way to kind of break up that massing so it didn't seem so large against the road, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Dave, you might want to address that.
Yeah, Cindy, if you can go to the Hot Meadow elevation and maybe the second floor plan as well, if you can split your screen. That's the first floor. It shows the commercial space, but the second floor, we've kind of scaled the building and stepped it back, and we created some ins and outs to kind of break up the scale of the facade. So here's the second floor. So you can kind of see how the massing now starts pulling away from the storefront, which the storefront is that thin line where the cursor is now. So the second floor pulls back and there's some jigs and jogs to it, which gives some interest to the roof line. And we've added some hips and some dormers on top of that. Cindy, if you go to that one there. So you can kind of see the massing.
I think the big impact of that though is along the ground level, where as people walk, it's not as significant to me that it's on the second floor. Not that it's not attractive, but I think it's having a flush along the road is, where are the patios and the greenery and all that in order to make it a little more, not as harsh along the road there.
Yep. We can certainly look into that. That's a good point.
And just in one point of view, in fairness to this rendering, it's showing the architectural side, but we do intend to keep those two really nice locus. So what you're seeing won't be quite as stark and full as this either. So
could you tell me the comparison, like, with the Vincent Funeral Home that has the green along the front of the building? And like what will that be similar in this new structure, or will it be closer to the road? Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Does it line up with the existing
Yeah,
building?
does it line up? Is it further back? Is it closer to the street?
So you can see where Vincent's front line is well, actually the porch is right there.
Yeah.
And so it's in line with that sort of round circular dot, and maybe, I don't know, on my screen, halfway along that curvature coming in. So then let's switch back to site plan so you can see that, see if we can transition the two elements. We're a little bit, actually, maybe further back just a little bit.
So that would all be trees and grass, or is that all just the parking, like you said, closer to the building?
In front of ours would be the trees and the little sitting areas, so they would be brick to to go along with the Simsbury Center Zone brick pavers.
Would it help the board if the applicant, let's just say down the road, when they come before the board formally, you'd want to see something kind of demonstrating street view? Street view, not just what the building will look like. I want to see landscaping, et cetera, public improvements, the covered porches, et cetera, so that it really could see how the building interacts with the public realm.
Because it looks like it's really
I'm not looking.
crowding
I'm not looking to
Hot
put-
Meadow. Sorry.
Yep. I think that's what I'm hearing from the board. In order to clarify whether it's crowding Hot Meadow or not, you need more information.
Right.
And that gives this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Polly, if you like, I have the Google Maps Street View up right now.
Oh, I have it on my phone. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
And if you think about the building starting beyond those trees and everything that you see in front still being there, it's pretty close to that, except that there may be some, like where you're seeing the little seats from Jay Foster's would maybe be a little bit of brick patio in there as well, but you'd still have the strip of grass and there'd be like paths. Yeah. So it's not as crowded as I think it looks on the drawing. So I think
that's just my concern. And I think like Dave said, to provide that picture, I think it was you, Dave, right? Of the street view, so that shows what it would look like for all of us if we were walking along, that we're not like, brushing against the building, that there'd be space similar to like what is in front of Vincent Funeral Home and some of the other properties along there. Thank you.
And Vincent, yeah, they have, the pavement as well that's nearby, for the loops around the back, whereas ours is going to be more of just the green and the pavers. The pavers are pavement too. It's just a nicer pavement. But we're hoping there'd be tables and chairs and umbrella. Again, I think the idea was that they're hoping that this would be in keeping with the form-based architecture and bringing, businesses back out to the street the way Emil and their group had originally looked at when they were going through this kind of regulatory process. So, yeah, it's a change. I understand that. But yeah, I think we probably what would be helpful is if we outlined Vincent's as well as doing the streetscape view, but if we outlined where Vincent's building was on here, just at least from an aerial standpoint. So we can do that next time as well.
And I think you're right. I think a perspective looking up the street with the building kind of plopped in the context would help.
I do have the concern of, no other green space on the property other than the wetlands, which is probably not available for people to sit on. It takes away from what people, I think, come to Simsbury for, is some green space.
If we can sort of go in a little more of a different direction, just in preliminary, I wanted to touch on, I'll be honest, I had to step away for a quick second, but did we go over the siding, what sort of material it is and the color scheme that you're going with?
Yeah, again, this is a very preliminary concept sketch. We really haven't gotten to the level of detail where we start investigating the materials. But at this point, we're anticipating brick or some kind of masonry at the street level, along with the storefront, aluminum panels and glazing. And then the upper areas that are shown kind of as that beige color, that would be kind of a cementitious siding and asphalt shingles on the roof. So that's kind of our preliminary idea of what we have for the materials. And then that would wrap all around the building on all sides.
Okay, and also when I was looking at the plan, it looks like there's a 4-foot high white vinyl fence that goes along the entire street frontage. Did I read the plans wrong, or is that in fact there?
So the idea there, primarily the 4-foot would be where the entrance to the apartments is, where you'd want some privacy to keep people from just wandering in there. The other, we were just trying to give some definition to the little eating areas. I don't know that we would need it to be 4 feet. I think what we are doing is just trying to give some definition. In fact, I think the idea would be that we'd try to match the general feel that you see along the street as there's other properties to the north and south that have a little white picket fence feel, and we would match that in the general sense of what we're proposing. But we did want to give it a little bit of privacy for people that might want to be dining and not having people walk right by on the sidewalk.
That's fine, but if we could also see that concept pictured on the street view,
Yep.
just so it's a full cohesion of the presentation.
Okay. All right.
I can understand it with and without, to be frank.
I would just, go ahead, Steve. Oh, I was just gonna say, I generally like the aesthetic of the facade. I think you're in the right track, and I think that, again, as is expressed before, is like the main concern is kind of that integration of how that works with the street, and do there need to be little recessed pockets to make it feel a little bit less imposing? But the general aesthetic of the facade, I think it's fitting with the town, and it does look attractive.
The challenge with this building is it really has two fronts because it faces two streets. So obviously the Hot Meadow facade is important, but we also put a lot of emphasis on the Iron Horse Boulevard facade as well. And so this is that facade there. So on this side of the building, it's actually a 4-story building. And at the bottom level where those oval windows are, that's what Henry was mentioning before. That's where we have our loading dock and our trash room. So we kind of conceal it in a discrete kind of way. So you don't really know it's the service portion of the building. And then on top of that, we capped it with the terrace. And that would relate to a public space within the building, like a community room where they can come out. So we may not have green space, but we do have exterior space for the tenants to come out, and they can overlook the Iron Horse Boulevard and the park in the distance.
Can I ask a sort of specific but unique question? Is it a dumpster? How are they going to tip a dumpster inside?
It's a rollout. They would roll it out, the truck would pick it up, dump it, and then roll it back in.
Okay, fair enough. Just curious.
Has there ever been any thought in having any like commercial space? I realize you have to have a place where you're doing the back of the house stuff, but has there been any thought of like commercial business back there right across from the meadows? That'd be a great place right off the bike path to get an ice cream versus the front sometimes.
So the difficulty there, just from one perspective, is that you've got a significant grade change that you're coming up to get to that first level, whereas coming off of Hot Meadow, we really have a beautiful situation where you're basically just pitching out at 2% back to the road, or 1.5% back to the road. We do have access along the northern side of the building that brings a walk all the way down to the lower level of the garage, so a tenant could walk out of his car in the garage and walk all the way up to Hot Meadow Street and what have you. But trying to get somebody down that drive, for any of you who recall going to Simsbury Town Shops, you'll see the same sort of steep drive as you pass the second level of that. It goes down pretty quickly, and we do tie in. But I think, Cindy, you could correct me, but we're certainly over the 5% that is required for typical access.
Yeah, that entire side is very steep. We've addressed pedestrian access towards the back of the building by providing, a series of ramps and landings, which it's a pretty intense setup, but we really felt it was important for pedestrian access to this back area from the outside as well. We provided a small sitting area for residents, which would, again, it'd be a smaller version of a large community patio where people could sit and overlook the wetlands and the meadows. And then we are sketching in a possibility that it's a bit too much for the developer to bite off at the moment, but the way we've done this, it works to continue this connection down with an ADA accessible route from Hot Meadow down to Iron Horse Boulevard, which we thought was a pretty exciting opportunity that the landowner could take advantage of once they've kind of recovered from the initial, capital investment of the property.
And just for the record, that series of walks and landings and what have you, there are a few locations where it does allow us a tie into the property to the north as well, Simsbury Townships, should that ever become something that's desired as well. People could cross over. The grades will allow that based on what's happening as you transition down. So I also have Tristan on the line. I would imagine from Steve, from your clarification of what you are more interested in, I don't know that you need to talk about it, but I just wanted to say, in general, the stormwater is all being handled on site. Again, we've talked to the town engineer about that. Everything will be infiltrated or held and let out at a rate that's consistent with today. We're not affecting anybody's property, so the wetlands, I think, will be in an enhanced situation. It'll still be given water. It'll be a nicer wetland. Today you see just kind of a lawn area, and again, this will have some nice plantings back there that'll be consistent with some of the other beautiful plantings you see along Iron Horse. Nice blooms at various times of the year, nice fragrance. Again, we're maintaining the trees that are along Iron Horse, the red maples that are put along there. They seem to thrive. Another name for red maple is a swamp maple. They seem to thrive in the wetter soil, so they'll be continued to be preserved. And there are plantings, again, we're maintaining, you see the two kind of willow colored trees in the front. Those are the two honey locusts. We've added a couple more plantings in the front as well that'll help provide color and interest throughout the year. And then the simple green lawns to make it look consistent with some of the other properties. So from a planting standpoint, it's fairly simple. But again, those plantings at the back of the building will take away from some of the elevation that you see in Dave's architectural elevation, because they'll soften up sort of that view a bit. We do have some plantings that are made to grow on the walls, some things like climbing hydrangea and that, which will provide blooms all summer, fragrance, and they'll also grow along the walls and soften that whole facade a little bit, as well as a few plants like shadblows and trees like that that won't block the view, won't they'll still allow view out to the mountain and beyond and to the fields, but and the wetlands and Farmington River, but won't will at least soften it just a little bit. I don't know if there's anything that we should cover in addition to this, Steve, that maybe we haven't covered.
I've got a couple other points I did want to just touch on. The Iron Horse elevation. Is that like AZAC or something back there, or because it's shown, around those circular highlighted windows?
We haven't really figured out what the material that's going to be yet. I'm assuming on the inside of those rooms, it's going to be a concrete block of some material like that for durability reasons. But how we face it, we haven't really gotten to that level of detail. Obviously, we'll be coming back in front of you folks, and once the plans are a little bit further developed, and we would have all the materials kind of highlighted on a sample board, and we would present that to you at that time.
One of the ideas, which is just a personal idea, doesn't speak about the board's viewpoint, just my own, is Vincent's and Town Hall, which is 2 out of 3 of your abutting neighbors, are brownstone. And I don't see any brownstone accents anywhere on the building. I don't know if you implement them in the columns out front in the commercial space, or perhaps in this back area. It could even be, I don't want to call it fake brownstone, but I think you know what I mean. Some sort of treatment that would just, draw off the cues of the neighbors. Because as I said earlier, one of our things is we want this to sort of highlight your neighbors, if you will, or accent them and become a consistent view.
Steve, that's a good point.
Just something
And
personal.
I agree with you. I think bringing in a brownstone element will help tie, because brownstone is a significant material used throughout Simsbury.
I
with the
don't
local
want to be
quarry.
picky, but it's actually red sandstone.
How do I mute someone?
Yeah, well, get used to it, Steve. You asked me to
Sorry.
join you.
And you can
So-
get the material in a veneer, so we can certainly do a veneer at the lower levels to tie that in.
The Methodist church down the street is also of that same color sandstone. So, you have a bunch of things to look at to give you some ideas. So excellent point, Steve.
Thank you.
Just go over
So
the
what
chip-
else can we give them for feedback?
I will stick to my original point. What I would like to see, if possible, is an elevation on Hub Meadow Street, the relationship between the adjacent structures and this new volume. I hope I'm wrong, but I still believe it's a very big volume compared to what's built left and right and across the street. I mean, if you look at the town shops, it's a cluster of all sorts of buildings connected somehow. If you look even further up the road at St. Mary, same thing. They built that very nice connector addition, but you still have like 3 different volumes there. I believe for this area, this volume, it's a bit out of scale, and many things can be done. It can be broken. So I'm hoping that with more progress in design and material selection, and many things can be done. Definitely, I like the idea to have some commercial on Hub Meadow. I'm not sure if we need, but obviously it will be very enjoyable to reside, to live in that area. So apartment buildings also are welcomed. I'm not very worried about the elevation on Iron Horse, because luckily in that wetland area, a lot of planting can be done and the trees can cover all the service area and everything else in between. But in particular on Route 10, on Hub Meadow, I'm concerned about the volume of the structure and the relationship with the other buildings. So yeah, this is what I would like to see. More information, a sketch, an outline of the volumes of the buildings left and right of this new proposed structure.
Thank you, Anka. One other, I'm sorry that I'm not have a reason. Sorry, I hit mute by accident. One other thing I do want to acknowledge is on one of these preliminary sketches, we don't need to know the details of a sign package. That's a different application. But I'm sure for the commercial component, you're going to want signage, which is going to be part of your Hot Meadow Street elevation, potentially, to be frank, your Iron Horse elevation. If you could include those as we get closer to a formal presentation, they are going to be real factors because you're going to need them. They aren't optional whether you have a sign for a commercial tenant. So I just wanted to mention that as we hone it down further.
Yeah, okay.
I understand. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, I understand, Anka, that is a lot of glass, which I understand. You know, the commercial concept, obviously, that's where my heart lies, is commercial industries. But it does look sort of like a car showroom. If we could break it up with, I don't know, the elevations or setback, just setback areas or columns or whatever. You guys have it. That's just some feedback as a reflex
those are good points.
Observation.
Those are very good points.
Anyone else? Last call. Let's we've given them a boatload to mule over, so don't be bashful. This is the time to bring it up because they can easily address it or dismiss it at this stage. As we get closer, they'll have put some significant time in. So
I've already said my piece, so I
don't want to rehash, but I think that what I was saying about the commercial, having some commercial space along the back was lost on the group, that I wasn't talking about up at the same level as the other commercial space. I was kind of talking about a way to engage. Maybe the grade is still too steep, but I was talking about engaging Iron Horse and the meadows and all the stuff that's happening over there with like the back by Iron Horse has become a kind of a showpiece for the town, but we still keep treating it like it's the dumpster zone. And yet like there's places like the pizza place down there that's trying to do something, but they can't because they're fighting with everybody's dumpsters. And I just think if there's a way to like not have it be like that, that we have a way to really engage a new area of town. That's all.
I hate to negate the area you have as you look at the Iron Horse elevation on the right, which is for residents, because it is a nice area. But that would be a potential smaller commercial vestibule. I know that's the wrong word, but I think you know what I'm saying. Perhaps you could just have some sort of accent that says, hey, there's businesses here. And that would also be a potential area for the additional signage, as that's where the path would be to walk around front, if I understood the proposal correctly. Just an idea. Like I said, you guys are at a drawing board.
Yeah, it's, it's difficult to get anything closer to Iron Horse there because of the wetlands issues there, but and because of the grading issue, we're a full story up and we're quite a distance back from there. But I have written that down, so we'll talk to them about the notion of getting at least a presence commercial. If nothing else, maybe Steve, maybe I misinterpreted you, but if nothing else, I guess we could have the signage there so that it presents, then at least it's visible there, and then people could walk in, use the elevator to get to the commercial space above.
Are you saying that like the kind of grade level beyond the wetlands is like a full story from Iron Horse? Is that what you just said?
Yes.
So
yes.
it's like, it is like a steep walk up to even get to where the building starts.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, that's, that is what it is then.
But I think maybe the notion of somehow making that so that it still appears and then you allow people to come into the building and get to the commercial space above maybe makes some sense from an economic standpoint as well, as well as fronting Iron Horse and giving a little bit of a presence. So we'll I guess that's something, Dave, that you can look into a little bit further.
Do you have a rendering of the north elevation?
The north elevation would be pretty much the same as the south elevation. So we didn't render this.
Because I thought there was like from one of the drawings, it looks like there was more there was a path and all of that. So I would like to see what that, if you could provide that picture from that point of view.
Yep.
And also any kind of plantings and greenery, and I like you can tell I like the green stuff. So the front is important, but both sides are important too, to have it be I don't want to say mask it, but to soften it, make it more attractive looking.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? All right, well, on behalf of all of us, thank you for taking the time and giving us the opportunity for a preliminary view. It's an exciting opportunity wherever it evolves into. It's an exciting opportunity for both you as well as the town. And we look forward to working with you to come up with a happy development of some form.
All right.
Right.
Mike, where do we go from here? Because it's informal. We don't need to.
You've done your job. You did a great job on feedback. Everyone, thank you. And you gave the applicant some very good comments to research. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm hungry. Can I go eat?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you.
Forward to the next drawings.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.